So, okay. All right. So welcome again. My name is Jennifer Ward, and I'm, I guess, the host, manager of Long Distance Real Estate Investors Facebook group. So we're a community of people who are looking to invest outside the area that we live. So it doesn't necessarily have to be out of state or even out of country, but just, maybe a few hours or so away for where we live locally. I live in Denver, and I predominantly invest in Indiana, in Indianapolis specifically, as well as a secondary market about an hour away called Terre Haute. And I house hack in Denver, and I invest in a variety of strategies in Indiana. We have an STR. We do long-term rentals. I have small multifamilies and single families, and I also rent to Section 8. So that's kind of, and then this year I am going to attempt the strategy of doing rent to own as well. So with some few properties I just acquired. So that's me. And today we're going to be talking about out of country investing in Portugal with Marielle Walter. And I'll have her do her introduction at the end. But we're just going to do a quick roundhouse of intros if you're comfortable with it. James, since I know you've got to run maybe in a little bit, how about you introduce yourself?
Cool. Yeah, I'm in Denver as well. That's how I know Jennifer. I mainly help other investors put together rent-to-own deals, lease options, sometimes seller financing, both here in Colorado, and we've done most of our deals in other states. So Midwest mainly, Florida. So it's kind of the short version.
Awesome. Thanks, James. Tatiana, would you like to share? And if,
Sorry,
okay.
sorry, sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I actually went for a walk while the call, so I'm not gonna share the video. Trying to
No
get
problem. Multitasking.
in between the meetings. But my name is Tatiana, and I'm based in Memphis, Tennessee, and I have a few long-term rentals. I've just started in the Airbnb, that kind of nice addition to mid-term rental, and I enjoy it a lot more than STR, to be honest. A lot less headache. And I am a member of your long distance investing. Haven't done it yet, but this Portugal popped up on my calendar, and that's why I kind of joined early. Didn't want to miss it, because actually my long-term goal is to move back to Europe with the family and kind of settle there and keep my US investments. But and Portugal was one of Spain and Portugal are the two countries kind of wish list too.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. Let's see, Kara, would you like to share?
Hi, this is Kara Palat. I am an investor in Philadelphia and interested in learning more about investing outside of my backyard. Thanks.
All right, thank you for sharing. Let's see, I'm going to try to go in an order that I can see. Victoria, welcome. Would you like to share?
I can share Girl Scout cookies.
Oh, bring them.
I'm actually a Girl Scout leader. I'm actually Marielle's daughter's Girl Scout leader, and we've known each other for quite some time.
Hey, girl.
Hey. I am interested, obviously, like in investing, but I also really want to get back to some of my own roots, and be able to have the capacity to go overseas if I wanted to, if that makes any sense. Like it's an option that has crossed my mind several times. So that's one of the reasons why I'm here. But I've subletted and I've done stuff like that in the city before.
Awesome.
I want to learn more.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining. Brenda, would you like to share?
Hi, so I'm Brenda. I'm based in Los Angeles. I syndicate multifamily deals primarily in the Sun Belt area. and develop small multifamily in Los Angeles. I'm in basically my husband's from Spain, so we've been looking at the Spain area because Portugal's right next door. So it seems like a great idea. And I'm really interested in eventually purchasing in Italy as well.
Very nice. Thanks for sharing. Claudia, welcome.
Hi, I'm Claudia Abendroth, and I'm in Washington, D.C. I have some condos that I rent out, long-term rentals. Eventually like to rent out my house. But I've been interested for a very long time in purchasing property in Spain, Italy, or Portugal, and possibly France. Just had a child 10 years ago and ended up focusing on that as I think many of us understand. And so trying to now come up to speed with I think what's great is there are groups of women now who are really into real estate investing, whereas that time it was just kind of figuring out on your own or being with like a very male dominated and not being taken seriously as a female investor. So I'm looking forward to learning from all of you guys who are doing kind of the newer things that weren't really available to us like 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Bev, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Beverly Wella here, and also in Philly. I think I know Kara. That's all the line from Philly. I have been investing for a while. Started wholesaling in 2006. But the reason I'm here is because I did go to Portugal last summer, and I don't know how I stumbled upon Marielle's post about her buying a place in looking for a place in Portugal. But after that trip, it was after the trip that I went on, and it just, my experience is in flipping and burring, and I just loved the idea of just being able to go back. So, just learning more about the process and, making that happen for myself and my family and others. So excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Ashley, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Okay, I'm Ashley. I'm a green realtor in Raleigh, North Carolina, and basically I just focus on high performance homes, things like that. I have one short-term rental down at the Carolina coast, and yeah, I think I stumbled across Marielle's post about Portugal, and I had a question about financing, and she said she was able to finance it there. Am I getting the right? Is that was you? Anyway, and I'm just fascinated by that. And I have a daughter, and I just really want to show her, like, go for it, like dream big and do what you want to do. So I'd love to learn more about investing outside of the country.
Love that. Thanks. Let's see. Emily.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily. I live in Washington, D.C. I'm just kind of getting started in real estate investing. I rented out and eventually sold a condo here in DC. And then I was recently part of a group flip in Maryland with the PowerHouse group that Marielle runs. And like the others, I'm really interested in investing abroad. I'm an avid traveler, and I have 2 young kids that we're trying to start, traveling with them, and the idea of having a property that we could visit once in a while. And also rent out the rest of the year is really appealing.
Awesome. Let's see. Jen Randall, welcome.
Hello, how are you? I'm Jen Randall. I'm from Long Island, New York. I work in Manhattan. We have income property in Pennsylvania, a couple in Pennsylvania, and about 3 in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. My husband and I plan to invest in the Caribbean within 4 years before he retires. And I'm here just to know about Portugal. Very interested.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Hi, Sonia, welcome.
Hi, my name is Sonia. I live in Massachusetts, north of Boston. I'm right on the New Hampshire line, so right there on the border. My husband and I have some short-term rental properties in New Hampshire and 2 long-term rental properties in New Hampshire. We invested internationally about 10 years ago in Mexico, very close to Tulum. And, you know, I don't know if you've heard, but the crime rates in Mexico have really skyrocketed. So, I've always wanted to invest in Portugal. I think you can tell by my last name, I have Portuguese heritage. My parents are from the Azores, and my husband's father's side, they're from the Azores. So we're actually leaving for Portugal next Wednesday. I will be on a plane to Portugal for 10 days. So we're gonna sort of do a mixture of pleasure and real estate research while we're there. So I just want to learn more about it, especially the financing piece of it. And so glad you're doing this. So thank you.
Yeah, well, good timing for the webinar. Thanks for sharing. Philip, welcome. Let's see. Oh, okay. So I'm going to read, Philip left a chat, so I'm going to read it out loud for everybody. Canadian West Coast resident, investing in Canada and the US for about 10 years, multifamily and single family. Just finalized my 75th unit recently. Wow, go Philip. Looking to expand my portfolio into Europe, more specifically Portugal. So he's in the airport right now. Thanks for sharing, Philip. Let's see. And I think we have Simone left. Welcome.
Yes, hi, my name is Simone. I have property in Denver, Spain, and Argentina, and I do find financing the biggest challenge while investing overseas. I've been using a HELOC, so I'm listening to learn more option if there's any. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Simone. And then I don't think I've called on Victoria yet.
I think you got Victoria, but we missed Molly, maybe?
Molly. Okay, thanks.
Hi, my name's Molly. I am outside of Washington, D.C. I have a couple long-term rentals, one midterm rental, and I've done a couple of flips, including a couple with Marielle's group.
Awesome.
And definitely interested in learning more about investing in Portugal. I've been interested in it for quite a while as somewhere to, go visit and have an excuse to go visit, as well as something that could potentially be, a base for a retirement later on.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, if there's anybody I left out, please chime in. I'll give a moment of silence.
I'm looking around. I think we hit everybody.
Yeah, it's hard because it jumps around.
Right, as people are joining.
Yeah, it doesn't keep you a consistent, steady list. Okay. Well, if we forgot you, or you just jumped on, feel free to put in the chat, just a little bit about where you are, where you're investing, and anything else you'd like to share real estate related would be amazing. So now I'm going to let Marielle Walter with PowerHouse Women Real Estate Investing go ahead and introduce herself. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. It was great meeting you all. I'm going to go ahead and figure out how to get my screen shared here. Sonia, that's so funny. Oh, it says that it's disabled. Participant screen sharing.
Okay.
Is that something?
Let me, I should be able to do it now. Sorry. Always forget about that preset.
No worries. So, Sonia, you said you were from New Hampshire? That's so funny because I'm from New Hampshire and I hardly ever meet anyone there, and I know no other investors there.
Well, now you do.
Yeah, and we're both going to be in Portugal at the same time, right?
Oh my gosh, this is crazy. Yeah, I was born and
stars
raised in
aligning.
Right? Yeah, totally. All right, so let me go and get this shared out here. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us to learn more about investing in Portugal today. I can speak from my experience now purchasing one property so far. So here's the agenda, and then I'll share an intro. After I share my intro, I'll talk about kind of like the big vision, how I got interested in investing in Portugal, the target markets that I started looking at, the investment I ended up making, how I built a network to actually make the deal possible, I'll talk about getting financing, which I hear is quite interesting to a lot of people on the call. I'll go over how I ran the rental numbers as well to convert my vacation home into a rental property. And also a little bit about hiring a property manager and getting the property ready. So I think a lot of you know me already, but for those of you who do not, Marielle Walter, I'm an investor based in Washington, D.C. I'm also the mommy, my most important job, of this beautiful now 6.5-year-old. I invest in DC and Maryland and a couple other states and now Portugal. I'll share more about that on the next slide. I also do some coaching and training and partnership groups through PowerHouse Women Real Estate Investing, a group that I run to help educate and empower women through partnerships to invest together, build wealth together. I'm also a passionate philanthropist. I believe in making a lot of money so we can give a lot of money back and do a lot of good. I'm also a completely obsessed traveler, and I spend almost all of my extra funds on traveling, probably contributed to me wanting to buy internationally. So here's a little bit about, I'm sorry, the video keeps popping up and I have to move it around. A little bit about my portfolio. So I started with single family rentals in DC. I started with house hacking, which we were sharing at the beginning, that we both love that strategy. I sold one of the house hacks, one of the single family rentals, and I used that money to start flipping. And I've done several flips, a small house flipping business in the Eastern Shore of Maryland. I also have transitioned into multifamily investing, both in the Eastern Shore. I have my own multifamily. I've also been an LP, a limited partner, passively investing in syndications. And I also have short-term rentals now. Of course, this one in Portugal, as well as two I'm setting up in Maryland, and I've also run a couple in Washington, D.C. I've also done some wholesaling, so a little bit of everything. So the vision, so how I got interested in purchasing in Portugal. So I visited initially, oh my gosh, this was years ago now. You can see my little one here. She was like 1.5, 2 years old. I absolutely loved it. And I knew immediately I had to come back. And I also had learned that it had this growing real estate market. And I knew I had to get on board. This was before COVID. Sadly, I didn't buy then because the prices have gone up crazy over the last few years. However, there are still some deals to be had. It's still a great place to buy. And so I really wanted to purchase what would be a vacation home / early retirement home for myself. And I wanted to have it paid off by vacationers and renters. I was excited about the opportunity to use Portuguese bank money as well, test out European living, and also just kind of have my little starter asset in Portugal to see if I'd like to do more investing there. So the first thing I had to do was build my team over there. Basically, I had to build my network. So the first thing I did was I really hit the expat communities hard. And I actually was looking with some other women as well. One is on the phone today. And we started to really build that network, reach out, try to figure out who had purchased before, who did they work with, who did they love. And then we started connecting with those folks and asking them for their recommendations, connecting with people who they had spoken to and worked with that really enjoyed working with them. And we vetted a ton of people. We had a lot of conversations, and we finally decided to work with this one, kind of more than just a local agent, but with like a consultant. They have some consultants who work with foreign buyers, and they can help you to kind of identify and look into markets across the country versus just one area. So we went with one of these consultants, and through him, I ended up finding multiple different recommendations. And so that's how I found my mortgage broker that I worked with. And I really enjoyed working with him. If I wasn't too sure about it, I would have asked for additional recommendations, but I was really happy with them. I also got a recommendation for a lawyer. The lawyer is super important. You really want to trust your lawyer, so make sure they come highly recommended. I got another recommendation and spoke to another lawyer, but I guess the beauty of working with the consultant's lawyer is that they had, you know, kind of like this volume deal where you got good pricing. And so we went ahead and worked with that lawyer. We also had to have an inspector. I'll talk a little bit about inspections later and how those are different. And of course, a property manager. So for property managers, I talked to both local investors as well as agents, as well as hit the forums. And I spoke to a few, I think 3 or 4 different property management companies before I landed on one, which I'll talk more about later as well. You also need on your team an accountant / tax professional, so you can get set up to be receiving income from a rental if you're going to go that route, and also making sure that the taxes are paid and you have the proper documentation that you also need to share with your tax professional in the US. We'll talk a tiny bit about taxes at the end. And I also personally hired a virtual assistant. I just went to Upwork and I searched Portugal and virtual assistant, and I hired somebody there $15 an hour, and they do things for me, like, for example, helping me order IKEA furniture at the IKEA in Porto. Just random things like that that are a little bit easier to have local support for. So that was building the network. So then once I had the consultant, it was all about looking at the different locations that I could potentially invest in. And so I'm not going to go into all of these locations. You'll see here some popular investment locations. And I think the interesting thing about this slide is looking at like how much do things cost to purchase versus what can you rent them for. And you'll notice there's some awesome destinations like Lisbon, for example. It's a great city, but it's gotten so expensive. And yeah, you get a little bit more income, but it's not that much more compared to what you can buy in another place and rent for. Like, for example, Porto is more affordable, the second largest city. And you can still rent for, there's strong rents, you know. In Braga, it's even more affordable, and the rents are a little bit lower, but they're not that bad, you know. So Braga is still considered like a very up and coming area. Porto even has room for growth. Vila Nova de Gaia, excuse me, allergies, is outside of Porto. And you can see like, it's a pretty good deal to buy in that area as far as the price point and what you can get in the rent. So that's an area that we've looked in as well. So I'm going to go to the next slide and talk a little bit more about where did we actually look. We drove through a lot of these places and scoped a little bit. So we did basically, myself and my fiance and my daughter, we did a real estate road trip. And I was going to scope property that we might want to purchase, that women in the group might be interested in purchasing together. And we wanted to look kind of across the country. And you can do this easily in Portugal, right? It's like such a small country to be able to do a road trip across. And so these are some of the key areas to invest, right? The Algarve has been super popular. Lisbon is super popular, Porto as well. And then the Silver Coast. The Silver Coast has been gaining more popularity, especially like over the last few years. So you can see down from the bottom, Albufeira is in Algarve, and we came up, we did Lisbon, we went through, this is now hitting the Silver Coast, right? Where Nazaré is, Coimbra, Aveiro. I'm botching the true pronunciation of all of the city names, but you get the picture. And then Porto, I absolutely love Porto, and I'm definitely continuing to look for investments there that, you know, I could purchase maybe in group investments with the women in my group. And then we went all the way up to Camina. And we went to Camina on the recommendation of the consultant that we worked with. And he was like, look, northern Portugal, up in this area, you've got beach on one side, you've got river on the other side. And it's still quite affordable because it has European tourism, but it hasn't really blown up yet. And it's still a little off the beaten path and a little sleepier. And we were like, cool. He showed us the price points and we were like, all right. The price point for the return up there, northern Portugal, is known for pretty strong returns. So after we took a look there, we decided that's actually where we were going to invest. So here's the investment. So in a nutshell, we decided to purchase in Camina, in a place called Seixas, and it is a 5-bedroom flat. And it was 165,000 euro. It later appraised at 172,000 euro. So this is what things are going for in this area. It's not like we bought it super distressed or anything like that. It's actually in pretty good condition, just needs updates. We bought for 25% down with 75% bank financing, and we're doing the short-term and mid-term rental strategy when we're not using it. So this right here is the beach that's nearby that we are obsessed with. This is the view from the balconies. You can see it actually overlooks the coast of Spain. So you can hop a boat from Portugal and ride over and check Spain out for the afternoon. So sorry, the slide is busy. There's a lot I wanted to remember to share about financing. So there's some opportunities and challenges to getting the financing. You know, once we have the property, we're moving forward with the financing. And we discovered, hey, it's actually a really similar application process to buying a second home in the US. It was like, and that's how we bought it. We bought it as if it was like, you know, a vacation home, a second home, and you get, you know, better terms. There are investor banks in Portugal, but the terms aren't going to be quite as good. So, so we kind of had to share like, you know, pay stubs and tax returns and credit reports and all the same stuff that you would do applying in the US. Again, like I said, I worked with a mortgage broker. That was awesome. He shared terms across 3 of the main banks that do fund foreign buyers. So that was awesome to get to see the different terms. and compare. The interest rates we were excited about, especially when we first started looking before they went up. On a 10-year average, they've been around 2.5%, so a lot lower than in the US in most cases, except for during COVID. And of course, they're higher right now. We ended up purchasing, I think it was like 4.5% by the time we purchased. It was changing every month. And but you can get an adjustable rate mortgage and you can actually lock the rate in when it drops. So we're banking on paying higher rates for a few years and then being able to lock it in later at a lower rate. So that's pretty cool too. The banks will, we learned, lend up to 80% LTV to foreigners. However, we didn't get that lucky. We only got 75% LTV. Some of the Portuguese banks do offer 35 and 40-year mortgages pending application age. We didn't get that lucky. We have a 30-year. And taxes and insurance costs are also lower. So that was interesting to discover during the process. So some of the challenges that we came across, home inspections were not considered common there, but they're being done more now because of Americans and perhaps other foreign buyers, but it wasn't as common. So the process is a little bit different. It was more expensive. And it was, in my opinion, less formal. I got like an email, a quick email and a video, and it wasn't a comprehensive report kind of picking the property apart. It was basically saying like, I don't see anything major happening here. So, but nonetheless, we were like, you know, get it done, get it done. So the bulk of paperwork is going to be in Portuguese. Some key documents are translated, like the deed, like a term sheet from the lender, but a lot of it is in Portuguese. I'm sure you can pay somebody to translate every single thing, but there's a lot of trust involved in the process and trusting the lawyer that you're working with to be reviewing things for you. So just take note of that. It can take several months to close. It's not like a, you know, you'll close in 30 days kind of thing. I don't know what the standard average is, but it took us several months, like at least 3 or 4 months to get our loan closed. And that's, you know, because of some of the things in the process that we had to do. We didn't have our Portuguese bank account set up just yet, for example. That took some extra time. So it depends how far you are in that process of getting set up as well when you go try to get your mortgage. So the interest rates, again, they're high now compared to where we ideally wanted to lock them in when we started looking, but everywhere, right? And another thing you want to keep your eye on is that the laws and policies are changing quickly. A lot of you probably heard of the Golden Visa program, which was super popular, and now they're doing away with the AL, which is like the short-term rental license. That is being limited in some of the major cities. So things change, and especially right now, things seem to be changing kind of quickly. So you want to just keep an eye on that. So I just wanted to give us a quick bank financing, some bank financing details here. So this is what they shared with us, kind of breaking it down for us. So we went with Novo Banco because they were the ones that we thought might go up to 20%. We thought for us putting down 20% and then funding the 80% LTV, but we ended up getting 25%, but we went with Novo Banco. We did a variable rate, which changes every 12 months. So you get locked for 12, then it changes, and so on. And eventually you can lock it in if you'd like. So they go off the Euribor, which means this is the rate that they'll look at, and then the bank will add their spread to it. So the Euribor will change and the bank will add their spread. The bank initially gave us a spread of they're going to add, to get to our rate, they were going to add 1.45%. And the mortgage broker actually told us we could negotiate that and ended up getting it down to 1.25%. So now every time our rate changes, it'll just be an additional 1.25% always on whatever the Euribor is. So we ended up, in this example they had sent us, which was actually like the month before we closed or something, we were around 4.3% interest. The amount to be financed, and again, we got a 30-year. The amount to be financed, of course, was 75% of the total amount. So it was around 124,000. Our monthly payment then being around 610 euro. Life insurance, you see a line here. So some of the banks, and sometimes they'll require life insurance. And it's not like the one that you have in the US works. It's something specific that they would require you to purchase that protects them. We didn't have to get it. I don't know the reasoning behind that, but we weren't required to. It's not super expensive if you do, so don't worry about that. And then we have the property insurance, and this is like pretty basic property insurance that covers major things happening and protects the bank. And again, it's really cheap. It's only about 14 euro a month. Then there were the global monthly charge is basically the total. is around 624 euros per month for the mortgage payment. So then you'll see here the closing costs. Basically, we had loan charges, we had acquisition charges. There's some significant taxes that you pay at close. The property taxes overall are cheaper, so you pay more taxes when you close. So it was over 7,000 euro, which brought our total then between like the 25% that we had to bring, and then these costs as well, close to 50,000 euro, specifically with the additional cost of like the lawyer and the inspection. So that's kind of where it landed. So I know I'm running through this quickly. I'll do a Q&A at the end, of course. So then we were looking, of course, as we went along evaluating the property, we looked at short-term rental numbers as well. And then we tried to be super conservative with ours. And then when we went with a specific property management company, we went with a company that came well recommended off of one of the Facebook groups, and we asked them for examples of their listings. Great listings, great reviews, woman-owned business. I was excited about that, and they're highly local. I like the idea of working with a highly local property management company because they really get their market. And there's a lot of property management companies in Portugal that are big, and they'll manage like primarily in cities, but then they'll have like a couple of properties that they manage here and there. And they would have worked with me. I found their rates were higher, and I just worried they didn't quite have the local knowledge. So we're testing it all out, right? We're testing out our team. We're building over time. So we're going to see how it goes. But we're excited to work with these women right now. And they shared with us, this is what they think they can get when the rental is fully stabilized. So this isn't going to be like year one where we're getting set up and we're getting our first reviews and things like that. This is going to be like when we are established. So, the first year we're happy to break even and make a little cash flow, and then build and build and build until we think we're actually going to get some strong returns, which you'll see on the next slide. So you can see here that we're planning on doing midterm rental in the slowest months, which would be January, February, and March, ideally getting around 1,300 euro per month. We have the middle season, basically April to June, September, and October, around 260 euros per night, up to, in the high season, getting around 320 euros per night. So in addition, there are some property management setup fees. And so I'm putting these here because these differ drastically across property management companies. Some of them wanted like $2,000 up front. This property management company was around 500. So you really want to check the costs and what's included when you're talking to property management companies. So the AL, which is basically the application to get your license to do the short-term rental, is about 80 euros. The staging and professional photos, around 200 euros. The listing creation across the platforms to get your listings live, close to 200 euros. So it's all around 500 euro. For all that. So some considerations, the figures, like I mentioned, again, they're for established rental, unestablished rental. The occupancy rates are going to vary a lot based on the season. Sometimes there's even like promotions and things that you'll see reflected on the next slide that we'll do during off season to up our occupancy. And again, check if you're going to go for it and get a rental in Portugal, check with a lot of different property management companies and get a sense of what their fees are across the board, not just the monthly, but the startup fees as well, and what that includes. So here's some of, whoops, let me see if I can go back. Okay, there we go. So our total income before costs based on the projections from the last slide is around $44,000 per year income. We have the property management fee. So once they're managing, not in the startup phase, they're charging 15% on income across the board. So this was quite affordable compared to other property management companies. We were quoted 20%, 25%. And the thing is, though, that they don't include the cleaning costs. So we're going to be learning what the cleaning costs are going to be. Like, we know what they are hourly and whatnot, but to really know concrete, we're going to have to run it for a while and see how that pans out. And see how much are we really saving. We think that we're going to save going this route, but we're not sure how much just yet. So there's also the platform fee using things like Airbnb. There's the cleaning fees, as I mentioned, that we had estimated. Say we're doing some promotions and things like that, we docked some money for that. The mortgage and insurance costs we're estimating for repairs and maintenance. We have utilities costs as well, consumables, things like, soap and shampoo. So the total cost around 32,000, leaving us with income after our costs of about 11,500 euro. This should all be in euro, by the way, and not in dollar. So it's going to be a solid return given the amount of money that we have in there, even for a US investment. Oftentimes in Portugal, you'll see returns of like 5, 6%, like maybe 7. Sometimes they get higher, but it's much more common to invest for a lower return than in the US, where you're expecting like 10 or more all the time. But in this area, running a successful short-term rental, the returns can still be exciting. So just a little bit on also getting these types of returns. We're going to have to do some renovations. So on the left-hand side, you can see some befores. I couldn't find a kitchen before. I'd taken video when I was there, and I'm trying to like extract photos from it. So it's, it's outdated tile, it's kind of like outdated cream color, old paint, things like that. It doesn't have nice trim and things, but one of the perks is it already had heat, which not all of the properties have heat. It's not as common. So to buy something that already has heat and can be rented year round is definitely a perk. This is my daughter right here thinking that this is a doll bath, the bidet, by the way. That was cute. So and on the other side, our property manager put together a mood board for us and basically made some recommendations on how she could see us renovating and furnishing to get the returns that we would like to get. So while our budget, we also had the contractor already come and quote. And while we are not going to be able to do quite this fabulous of a kitchen, I think we are going to do pretty similar for everything. We are going to use the cabinets that are already there. We're going to have them painted, new hardware, backsplash, probably new counter. We're going to open up a wall, ideally, because interestingly enough, the renovations are a bit more affordable from the quotes that we've gotten initially. And with 10,000, we're able to get the place painted and get a bathroom or 2 renovated and some of the work done in the kitchen. So we're kind of going to start with a good base on the renovations and then maybe, over time, renovate further. So we're going to try to stick to about a $10,000 renovation budget, maybe move a little bit over that. And then we're looking at around $5,000 to furnish. That's mainly like big bulk items from IKEA and then more local staging items to polish off the furnishing. So I know that I anticipate that I'm going to get questions about taxes, and I am not a tax professional in any country. And so I really can't comment, but I wanted to drop a few bullets here from a resource that I thought was pretty good, an accounting resource. So as a non-resident of Portugal, you pay a tax rate of 28%, but you only have to pay that on 35% of the total rental income. They consider the remaining 65% as expenses in running the business. So overall, this accountant was saying that you basically have a effective tax rate of less than 10%. And some people ask, like, what if I'm in the US while I'm receiving the income? Like, yes, you still have to report it. In Portugal, you still have to pay on it because you're generating the money there. But what's interesting is there's a bilateral double tax agreement. So when you're making money in Portugal, and you're being taxed there, you get a document that you can show in the US. And at least according to my tax professional, then you don't have to pay taxes twice. So that's a perk. So I went over a ton of information there, and I am happy to open it up for questions now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marielle. That was awesome. I'm shocked to hear how low renovation costs are. I don't think we can do 1 bathroom for 10,000. So that's pretty incredible.
I know he quoted me 3 bathrooms and painting the apartment for 10 grand. And we were like, ooh, maybe we should just do like 1.5 bathrooms and then some more work in the kitchen rather than just having the cabinets painted. So it's kind of like now that we know, we can kind of work with it. But yeah, it was really impressive to think that we could get but they were doing interesting things. Like I've never seen here tile installed on tile, where apparently it's more common practice. Oh. Yeah, there, or maybe it was a English translation thing also. Sometimes you get things on documentation, you need to have that conversation because things get a little lost in translation as well. So we're going to be there next week, and we're going to walk through, and that is very early on in me being able to really like present and talk about that process. But after this trip and after, you know, the following month of doing the renovations, I'll have a lot more information to share on how that process goes.
Yeah, well, I wonder if are you going to be doing some vlogging while you're there, going through and thinking about sharing
Yes.
that? Okay.
Ideally, I always am intending to be sharing all this good stuff, and then I get in the weeds. But yeah, I mean,
Sure.
I'm going to be taking tons of pictures and videos, and I'll try to be doing routine updates. But otherwise, I'll just include it in, you know, presentations and things like that in the future.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, if it'll be helpful, I'll go through some of the questions that were posted in chats. So we'll start from the top. Ashley asked about the utilities. If you have a general idea on the top of your head right now what utilities are, or if you can share that later on.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have them carved out as to like what water versus electric and things like that are right now. I remember when I initially added them up, it was pretty similar to US
Oh, okay. Got
utility
it.
amounts. Yeah.
And then Ashley asked about if you designed the renovation yourself, or if you're
No.
using a designer
So
or the contractor.
I got lucky that my property manager is into that kind of stuff, and she's done a wonderful job with some of the other properties that she's managed. So what I did was I basically showed her pictures. I went through her most beautiful listings and showed her what I liked. And I sent them to her and, you know, kind of asked, what would this cost, you know, to get these renovations done, an update in this manner. And she kind of shared, you know, walked the contractor through and shared pricing. And she then sent a mood board basically saying like, this is the color scheme I recommend for your place. And this is the type of, you know, tile and things like this. And, you know, let me know if you'd like to move forward. And so I figure if I was not visiting and I was just having it done, I'd probably just go ahead and approve what she had shared. But since I'm going to be there, I might like do a little perusing of the local Home Depot. They don't actually have like Home Depot, but the similar stores there and whatnot, and chat with her a little bit further. But yeah, it was really helpful to get the mood board from her.
Okay. And I guess so you're in the middle of renovation, is that correct?
No, they haven't kicked off. We've just gotten the quote so far.
Okay, you've just got the quote. Okay, because some of the questions are, you know, how is the process differ from here? So I guess your experience so far, have there been any distinct differences?
Everything just moves slower.
Okay. Island time.
Yeah. And I mean, you can get multiple quotes. You know, I requested multiple quotes. I mean, it was the kind of thing where I feel like in the US, if I get a quote, I'll expect to hear back something in like a day or 2 days.
Yeah.
It could be a week or, you know, more to hear back. I haven't had the work done, so I don't know. I'm told by the property management company that this is the contractor that shows up, but what I know from talking to them is that they run into the same problems with like somebody saying they're going to do the work and then not showing up and it taking forever. So I think it's just really important to talk to people and use contractors that they know, like, and trust that show up similarly. But yeah, I'm going to hear about the whole financial structure soon and what, you know, what they'll be requesting up front, you know, when they require payment and things like that. So that wasn't submit with the quote, which I was kind of hoping it would be. So that's something that I'm continuing to explore with them.
Okay. So it sounds like maybe holding costs need to be several months out or more months than we would typically do here.
That's a great point. Yeah. And so for us, like we didn't set the utilities up initially. So we weren't there, right? It's not renovated yet until the renovations begin or we were there. We didn't need to set those up, but we kind of did look at the mortgage and say like, okay, you know, because it's $600 a month and there's two of us, we both just kind of threw a couple grand into the account to get started and said like, all right, you know, that'll be fine for a few months of covering the mortgage and, you know, getting the utilities set up now. We'll have to start paying those as well.
Got it. Okay. Jen asked if you put your property in Portugal in an LLC.
We did not. Nope. When we talked to a couple of the accountants, one of them did recommend doing that. He said that somebody else said, you know, honestly, you don't really need to do that. And he was a bit more affordable. He works closely with the property manager and a lot of the people she works with. So we decided to go with his version, but setting up a business in Portugal, and I'm not even sure if it would be like technically an LLC, but he mentioned setting up a business that you could receive the funds through and whatnot. So it's an option, I guess. Yeah,
Okay.
but you can't, I mean, if you want to get the good terms and buy as like a vacation home, my understanding was that you can't, you can't do that in LLC anyway, so you do need to buy it in your name if you're
Is it
going
because
that route.
they're less litigious than us?
They are so much less litigious that it's like scary as an American. So many times in the process, I was told like, don't worry, this is just how it's done. Oh, for example, here's a fun fact. You send your down payment directly to, or a part of it. I think it was it 10% that we ended up having to send directly to their bank account. The seller's bank account does not get held in escrow. Yeah. And for me, I was like, oh my goodness, like I can't, like, this is definitely feels scary. Like, how does it work when this or that happens? And they're like, that doesn't happen much in Portugal, really, like, and it was, everything was just like this like trust factor that I hadn't encountered. Also, we had to sign, there was something around the inspection as well, I remembered, where, they want us to get the inspection before we sign the contract. And I was like, well, I prefer that we sign the contract and then I do the inspection so I don't lose that money if they change their mind and sold us. He's like, no, that doesn't, don't worry. This is really just how it's done. Like the fact that he's letting you have an inspection when it's not as common, like you should just, he was like, you should just go with this because he's letting you have this. And I was like, okay. So there were definitely some parts of the process like that where you realize like it is different, and in a country without as many lawsuits, things operate. I don't quite have the same. The other thing was around title insurance. I'm trying to remember, there was something around title insurance where they didn't, I was like, you got a clear title, but you don't necessarily get, like, the lender doesn't have the same title insurance or something to protect against like lawsuits. If something was to come up, like they consider it final that this search was done. It's really interesting. So there's pieces where, the same protections against lawsuits later just aren't there.
Well, it's just not a sue happy country. So that's a positive thing.
And I kept telling them that. I was like, this is the whole reason I love this country. And at the same time, it's like, feels so tricky to do this business transaction also, from that perspective. And there was definitely things with like in the translation where you just had to trust, like, okay, it says this and it's not like super duper clear in English. But the interesting thing is, even when you have it translated to English, the Portuguese one is what holds. So like nitpicking all of the language in English to get it just perfect. He's like, it's honestly like, it's the idea of it is there so you can read it and understand what's going on, but the Portuguese version is what upholds in court, and it is correct. And there are things like that in the process. Like I said, you really need to trust the people that you work with.
Yeah. So control freaks beware.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Be prepared. Ashley asked, how do the locals feel about expat investors? Are they receptive or are they?
Such a good question. It's such a catch-22 because like what has happened to real estate prices is awful. And a lot of people are really upset about that. But at the same, because a lot of people can't afford to purchase, like the Portuguese can't afford to purchase anymore. But at the same time, like so much tourism is good. So depending on what industry they're in, they might be really happy about the tourism. They might run ALs, like have the AL license and run short-term rentals, in which case they're benefiting off that. So some people are happy about like the money with the tourism and whatnot that has been brought in, and other people, I think on the whole though, people are pretty unhappy about what's happened to real estate prices. And I think like as a foreign investor, what is super important, even if you're buying in cash, for example, I think maybe it's more happening when people are just going in and they're like, I've got a bunch of cash. I want to buy like Golden Visa, for example. Like I'm going to buy this place for like $500,000 cash or $350,000 cash. And they just think something seems like a good deal and throw cash at it. And that screws up all the comps for everyone because like it wouldn't have necessarily appraised at that. That's not really what it was worth. They were being like, people will add apparently 100,000 euro on prices when they know it's a foreigner who wants to buy it. That's what an agent told me on our last conversation, higher than I even realized. So you want to work with somebody who's going to help you get local deals, not just for you, but like for the local economies as well. Like, so you don't throw off their market values. And so you're responsible. So when you're buying with financing, you get an appraisal. So it kind of like, I think it helps a bit. You can still skew with appraisals, I think, as well. Right. Like those over time, as people buy for more and more and more, those also will kind of adjust up. but it helps, I think, at least. But there's been so many people just coming in and buying things like, oh, $700,000 for a 2-bedroom condo in Porto. That's so cheap if they're coming from like California or somewhere where that's going to be considered, you know, like that would be a lot more in their area. And that has been really problematic because now there's almost like two markets, which is the like what Porto is supposed to cost and like what foreigners are buying stuff for. So I mean, I think that's why they've also been doing away with like the golden visa and things like that. They're getting rid of the AL, as I mentioned, in some places, or they're restricting the permits for the AL because they're working on cooling that off now.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads into another question, and I'm sorry if I'm not going to get everybody's question asked. Kind of skimming through them and just want to pull some out that I think are going to be the maybe at the top of other people's interest. What about that AL process, the process to get the permit for short-term rental?
Yeah. Again, that's something that we're just kicking off now. I
Okay.
haven't been through the whole process. And honestly, it's something that you can almost completely outsource. And you probably want to almost completely outsource to your property management company. There's a couple different ways that they can go about doing these things for you. And some of them, like I know someone, investor that actually owns below me. Her property management company basically like leased it from her and then did everything themselves. Whereas in my case, like my property management company is just managing for me. They're not leasing it from me. But they basically gave me a sheet of documentation that they need. And then they go into the office and they apply for it. And in my area, since it's sleepier, she knows everybody there. She brings in because I was worried, like, is the AL crackdown going to impact me? Am I not going to get an AL in this area? She's like, oh, we're going to have coffee and talk about it and everything's going to be great. Like, I don't anticipate any problems, right? So it's kind of nice because she knows the people. Like when I talked to the other property management company outside, they were like, oh, well, you have 5 bedrooms, but 2 of them are, you know, in a renovated attic. And I don't know how that's going to be. And what about the permitting and the inspections and she is like, so like, in the local economy and like with the local contacts and knows what's going on. She's just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go get your AL, no problem. Yep, you're going to furnish it this way. And that's going to enable you to, you know, adhere to the, you know, the permitting process and everything, but also be able to, you know, get the bedrooms in that you want. So it's kind of interesting. I think it depends who you work with, but yeah, really, you're going to have to get a certain amount of documentation together. Part of it, you're going to have to work with your accountant to get. They have to do some like financial filings for you. And then you have that to submit for the AL application. And then depending, I guess this part has taken a while just to get the filings, like the financial filings has taken weeks. So getting the AL, she says, should probably just be like 10 days, but getting the initial paperwork together takes a while. So you can anticipate it taking like, I would think at least a month or 2. I think that the other woman who owns the flat below me said it took her at least a couple months to get the AL. So again, with the holding costs and everything, you want to be careful to not think that you're going to buy and just like throw a bunch of furniture in there and all of a sudden you're going to be renting. You do have to wait for the paperwork to come back and it can be lengthy. And you have to be really careful if you're buying in the big cities right now to see if you could even get an AL at this point.
Yeah. So again, another timely process. I have a quick question, and then I guess for any follow-up questions or questions I wasn't able to ask, I'm thinking maybe the best way is for them to either reach out to you on your Facebook group, PowerHouse Women Real Estate Investors, or if you did RSVP for this through Long Distance Real Estate Investors, you know, there's a chat room on the event page. So I think maybe that would be a good place to post questions, because then other people can see them too who participated. But I guess whatever you prefer, Marielle, you can share that.
Yeah, feel free to reach out anyway. Yeah, PowerHouse Women Real Estate Investing on Facebook, PowerHouse Women REI on Instagram. I'm happy to, you know, share my email if you want to send that in a follow-up, or yeah, reach out any way you like, and I'm happy to answer questions. And I'm excited to hear about all of your journeys as well buying in Portugal, because it's been really fun and exciting, and I'm all about the fun and exciting investing as well. So it's so awesome to have so many people on this call that are also interested. And I can't wait to reconnect with you guys. And Jennifer, thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mariella. This was awesome. It was definitely kind of a selfish ask to have you do this, because this is something I've been wanting to do, is invest out of country for a long time. So this is definitely kickstarting that new journey, and I'm so thrilled to see all of the interest. I mean, we had a really good turnout, I believe, today. So Thank you so much, everybody, for coming on and sticking through it. It seems like I don't think anybody has dropped off. So, and I hope, hopefully everybody here is a part of Marielle's group, PowerHouse Women Real Estate Investing. And if you are interested in investing long distance or you're already doing it, I invite you to join our group, Long Distance Real Estate Investors. I try to do a monthly network hour. So this is considered one of my network hours. And I'm throwing in, topics each time hoping to find guest speakers like Mariella. And I know Mariella does a lot of networking with her group too. So hopefully everybody might like to join both of us. And yeah, Mariella, we'll be in touch, of course. So I really appreciate this.
Oh, can I ask one question before we hop off?
Yeah.
I love to get pictures with my groups. Well, I don't know if you do that, but if
Oh, that's
anybody
a
would
great
mind
idea.
putting their camera on and giving a wave or a smile.
Oh, that's fun.
All right.
I like that.
I'll take a quick screenshot. Remember our time together today. All right. I'm getting all these pop-ups that are like totally. All right. Ah, it's great to see all your faces. Hey. All right. Smile. Thanks, ladies.
Awesome.
And Jen. Do we have one Jen now? I think we have one Jen.
Yeah,
Again,
well,
you
and
managed
Philip
to
was
make it
here
through the whole-
before. I think he's on his plane now, is probably what happened.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. Thanks,
All
James,
right.
for joining. Yeah, thanks everybody, and especially to you, Mariella. I really appreciate it and look forward to keeping connected with everybody. Have a great rest of your week and day.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks.
You all. Bye.
Bye.